it's a very nice place. So it can be very, very attractive for us to kind of think about, at least. Even in this world, we think, oh, look at these successful people, or look at that nice place for a holiday. So all these, this psychology is even here in this world here. Then we'll talk about the glories of Bharatavarsha. What does Bharatavarsha have to offer in terms of uh, material or spiritual attributes? We'll then cover as Srila Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, the demigods had a list of regrets. He mentioned four. So we'll cover that. And then we'll talk a little bit about the value of performing great sacrifices. Even the demigods asked, what is the value of all this, right? All these things that we did. So we'll cover that. And then Srila Prabhupada rightly mentions at the end of the purport, one should try to return home back to Godhead. Then we'll have a small section around reflections and introspection. And then we'll conclude with questions. Yeah. All right. So what is this allurement of the heavenly planets? First of all, pleasure is more subtle. We'll see that even in this world, as we there's different grades of pleasures even in this world, right? We have like carnal pleasures, we have gross pleasures, we have subtle pleasures. Srila Prabhupada once said, the more intelligent one is, the more they can actually enjoy. So similarly, the higher the grade of beings, the higher the pleasure. So even in the heavenly planets, the beings are more subtle, and therefore the pleasure is higher, much better. All right. Sorry, I haven't finished yet. So yeah, we'll conclude with the more subtler the pleasure, the higher the pleasure. The next one is lifespan is significantly longer. We'll see that the 6 months equal to 1 day or 12 hours in the heavenly planets. So by earthly calculations, the beings there last for 10,000 years. So it's quite long. We even see in this world, people like to increase the duration of life. They're doing so many things around cryopreservation and ice chambers, cryosleep, etc. They also have things like anti-aging. So many things where even in this world we try to be immortal, try to live longer. So that's already available in the heavenly planets. And then there's the predominant mode of goodness, which is also really attractive, right? There's less crimes. This there's a crimes at all-time low. It's a land of plenty, right? The atmosphere is very, very peaceful as a result. People tend to be more peaceful and patient and tolerant, etc. So it's a good place. Even in other religions, we'll see there's heaven and hell, right? In Islam or Christianity, people would like to go to heaven, even though their perception of heaven is that they'll meet God. But even then, it's very, very attractive. It's like the high life. And it's aesthetically pleasing to the eyes. The architecture, the landscape, people, they're generally very, very beautiful. And therefore, as a result, the insecurities are also at all-time low. Everyone's attractive, so people don't need to worry about looking in a mirror and worrying about everything, etc. All right. So, what is the problem? What's wrong with the heavenly planets? So, Srila Prabhupada mentions this one point. It's like a Ferris wheel, and we'll talk a little bit about the Ferris wheel. Sometimes it goes up, and sometimes it comes down. Right? We'll see even in this life. Sometimes we'll gain some success. Objects you desire, you'll get them. Sometimes even without effort, we'll get something. But we also have to remember the time when we also suffered a major loss. Uh, it was heart-wrenching. It was sad. We were in a very desperate position. And then, so this duality is also there, in the material world and even in heaven, right? This constant duality of material world is controlled by time. Time dictates whether we get good things or we get bad things coming to us. So that's the problem with when we go sometimes up and sometimes down. I remember when my Guru Maharaj actually told me once, I think he told me something like 10 years ago, he told me, oh, things are good right now. Great. Things are good for you right now, karmically. But calamities will come, and your philosophy, your understanding of Srila Prabhupada's uh, instructions will be tested. So it was amazing. Srila Prabhupada's books will be tested. So I didn't understand what he was saying, but then he concluded with that one must find pleasure, one must find the bliss in spiritual activities. So your well will dry up, he concluded. So such nice instructions about. The other point is that this world is this heavenly planet is temporary, right? In the larger schemes of things. So things might look good there, but one has to come down, right? As Bhagavad Gita says, chapter 8, text number 16, Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punar Arvatino Jana Mamapaya Tukonteya Punar Janmana Vidyate. That is from the highest planet to in the material world down to the lowest are all places of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So Krishna is saying that the heavenly planets down to the lower planets are places of misery, cycle of birth and death. So we have to think about that. Um, Another verse Krishna talks about is Bhagavad Gita 8.16. He mentions Dukhalayam Ashashvatam. Dukhalayam means a place of misery, and Ashashvatam means it is temporary. So that's the problem here. And the other thing that the demigods actually worry about is that they have the constant anxiety about protecting what's mine. Even in this world, we sometimes, when we attain power, wealth, possessions, status, right? Sometimes even in our community, we have some kind of social standing. We want to latch onto it. We want to keep it. This is mine. And if somebody threatens it, we try to protect it. We call it self-preservation. And it's okay. Even in the material world, we think that's okay. Self-preservation, that's fine. You got to do what you got to do. So the demigods are in constant anxiety about having all these attributes, beauty and power and pleasures, but they're always in anxiety that if somebody was going to come and take it away from us. So yeah, imagine being a demigod when there's a lot of all these attributes, and obviously you're also worried about like keeping up with the Joneses as well. Like, what does this other demigod have? What does this demigod have? They all have different powers, or they're a threat to me, etc. Um, if you recall, even Lord Indra had anxieties about threat to his position. If somebody was doing some severe austerities, he would hatch many plots to protect his position. So demigods are also under the constant threat by the demons as well. So it's not a safe place ultimately, the heavenly planets. And Prabhupada gives an amazing analogy of different grades of prison cells, right? He talks about, heavenly planet, Earth, doesn't matter where you are. It's all prison, just different grades of prison. Sometimes you're a good prisoner, you might be sent to a library to work there. You might be in good behavior, or you might be sent to a safer prison block where you're away from the criminals that do severe crimes like murder, etc. So you might be in a better prison block, but it's all prison. It's just the different grades of prison. And I like to think of it as a spiritual bank account versus a material bank account, right? Heavenly planets, whether you're there or not, whether you do piety or impiety, it's like a material bank account. Once it's used up, it's gone. Just like when you go for a holiday, you might be enjoying, in the Barbados, Bahamas, Hawaii, etc. But when you come back home, you're faced with a nasty bill, credit card bill, and you're like, where did all the money go? Now I have to save up. I have to save up for another year to spend another 2 weeks somewhere. So you have to I have to save up for such a long time for a little bit of pleasure. So that's the thing. Bhagavad Gita talks about that. It says that when we have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure, and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three Vedas achieve only repeated birth and death. That's the value. That's the value that they only achieve repeated birth and death after all that. So what does Bharat Varsha have to offer, right? So we already analyzed the heavenly planets, the pros and cons. Now let's look at Bharat Varsha. So the glories of Bharat Varsha. Prabhupada mentions the word Punya Bhumi. It's a pious land that was formerly known as Ilavrit Varsha. This is a very auspicious place because Bhagwan comes personally. We'll see many incarnations that come down. Lord Ramachandra, Krishna, Buddha, so many incarnations actually appear in Bharatvarsh. It's also a place of dhammas, these holy places. Ayodhya, Jagannath Puri, Mathura, Mayapur, and Dwarka. I'm sure most of you have been visited, taken pilgrimage here to these holy places. Amazing. You see people that are devoted. You gain inspiration, you gain nourishment, culture. It's like a battery recharge. Devotees go, many times a year, at least once a year. It's also a holy place it's a place of holy rivers. You have the Ganges, Jamuna, Godavari, Narmada. There's a beautiful verse, Vedic verse around this. Gange Chamuna Chaiva, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada, Sindhu Kavari, Jalasmin Sanitim Kuru. So there's all these nice places that also devotees go, and all they have to do is dip in the water, and many sins, thousands and thousands of sins is just wiped out. And we have great saintly personalities, the Sampradaya Acharyas, Srila Ramanuj, Madhva, Vishnu Swami appeared. So these powerful Vallabhacharya, not to mention as well. So these powerful personalities came down, all from the line of the disciplic succession, and they also taught amazing transcendental science. And generally, we'll see when we look around in Bharatvarsh, people generally follow the Vedic principles. They believe in karma, and they believe in Lord Krishna. You don't have to like convince them too much. It's kind of part of their lifestyle and culture. As Prabhupada says, just have to scrape the skin off, and it's there. It's like naturally there. It's God-fearing people. Okay, so what do these factors all have in common? These are all spiritual by nature, right? It's transcendental. Something that if we look at uh, what the heavenly planets have to offer, that wasn't there. And we'll cover that in a little bit about the demigods' regret, but we'll see that these attributes weren't there in the heavenly planets. All right, the demigods' regret. So who do you think the demigods, what kind of regrets do you think they will have, They should be happy, right? They should be happy. They've been elevated to the heavenly planets. Now, let's not underestimate a demigod. They're extremely powerful. They think of most materially successful celebrity, be it Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber. Uh, yeah. Now, these people, most of the world look up to. They're like, okay, these are successful people. These are super successful people. But let's not forget these demigods are millions and trillion times more successful than these people here because they've been elevated to the heavenly planets. Yet they have regrets, right? The first regret they had is the dread being elevated to the heavenly planets. Why? Comes to the second regret. They could not take full advantage of being born in Bharatvarsh. Then they had a third regret. They were distracted by so much sense gratification, so much that it led to the root regret, which was they forgot the lotus feet of Lord Narayan. So this was the source of all the regret, forgetting the lotus feet of Narayan. But wait, didn't the demigods perform great sacrifices? We read in the translation, right? They did austerities, they gave charity, they observed vows, sacrifices, etc. So isn't that a good thing? All right. So let's talk a little bit about the value of performing great sacrifices. So they executed ritualistic sacrifices, which is very, very hard to do. we'll see that in the previous ages, the Theta Yoga, people do this to go back home, back to Godhead. They also underwent severe austerities, right? Something that you do in Satyug to go back home, back to Godhead. It's a Yug Dharma for Satyug. They also observed vows. These are really strong vows that, these pious people, to achieve heavenly planets, they observed many, many vows. They also gave charity. Again, these are all amazing activities that they do. So aren't these all spiritual activities? Isn't it? We say like in our dharma, if you do these things, they're spiritual. You should be going home back to Godhead. So it sounds familiar, right? Because Krishna says something about these things in the Bhagavad Gita, and we'll talk about that. So Bhagavad Gita, as it is, 1153. Krishna says, the form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. Then why do we do it, right? If Krishna says that you can't do it by studying the Vedas or undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship, right? As the demigods came to find out, then why do all these things, right? Krishna answers that question. Bhagavad Gita in chapter 9:27, he says, Yat karoshi yadashnashi yat juhoshi dadasiyat yat tapasyasi sakanteya tat kurusha madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. Then Krishna again talks about it at 1154. Only by undivided devotion service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. And this is strong. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. Again, in chapter 8, 228, we're just pulling out scriptural evidence here. Person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from the studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So it's saying here that those who are in the path of devotional service, they already get the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, austerities. All right, so we find out that the value is actually Krishna. The secret ingredient is Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, chapter 9, text 41. Lord Vishnu says, the ultimate goal of performing all traditional good works, penances, sacrifices, charity, mystical activities, trance, is to invoke my satisfaction. This is when Lord Vishnu speaks to Lord Brahma. Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain in the purport, one's only concern should be to satisfy the Lord by one's activities. If the Lord is satisfied by an action, whatever it may be, then it is successful. Otherwise, it is simply a waste of time. So very strong. Prabhupada mentioned this quite a few times, even in his conversation with his disciples, morning walks, etc. He always talks about simply a waste of time. So what's the waste of time? If you fail to satisfy the Lord. So it doesn't have to be just charity or penance or seemingly spiritual activities, anything you're doing, it says here, whatever it may be, is if it satisfies the Lord, then it's successful. All right. So we'll jump on to why, even material world, even everyone talks about going back to Earth, from the heavenly planet. But our goal is to return home, right? Krishna, Krishna says in chapter 15, text number 6, Atad suryo dashankuna pavaka yagadvana nirvantante tadhama paramam mama. That supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So again, this is talking about saving up, but this saving up is an eternal bank account. right? It is with interest. And the interest is that you also get mercy while you're in this path. You're doing a little bit, you do a little bit for Krishna, Krishna will do a lot more. His hands are a lot bigger than us. So if we offer something to Krishna with our small hands, when Krishna reciprocates with his big hands, it's a lot more, right? So it's with interest. So it's such a nice thing that that bank account never diminishes. It is always there. It doesn't matter. Many, many lifetimes, material bank account, give, take, give, take. Sometimes it gets less, sometimes it gets more. The spiritual bank account is is eternal. The spiritual world is self-luminous, right? The Brahma Jyoti is lighting everything up. Golok Vrindavan, all the planets, as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, is self-luminous. Here, in the material world, we rely on the sun to give light to everything, right? So one planet for the rest of the solar system. So we have dependencies, right? Space, time, distance, everything is in relative in the material world. And here's the key thing: one does not come back. So if one goes to the heavenly planet, after all the pious credits have been exhausted, one has to return to the Earth planet, right? But when one goes to the spiritual world, yad gatva na nirvatante, right? One does not come back. Another key point here. So that supreme abode of mind can be achieved only by surrender and by no other means. Srila Prabhupada talks about this in the purport, that supreme abode can be achieved only by surrender. So we have to become surrendered to Krishna. So we have to understand what that means, what the science is of surrender. All right, so here's some reflections that I had after reading the purport. Um, the demigods are not necessarily spiritually advanced, right? Sometimes I also grew up. Sometimes I wasn't always in ISKCON. I entered the movement back in 1996 when I was only 16 years old. I always thought these devatas, oh, they're all spiritually advanced. But no, they actually, after reading Prabhupada's books, we have come to understand that they have a very advanced subtle body, which means maturely they're more advanced. They're like that. The demigods also they're seemingly successful, right? We also think like, okay, look at that. They've got it, they're so powerful. They can do so many things that normal people cannot do. But yeah, they mentioned they had so many regrets. So this questions our aspirations as well, that what do we define as success, right? We sometimes think being rich, being powerful, having influence, wealth, etc., strength, fame, beauty, all these things are amazing. I was just talking to a god brother of mine, and he actually had a different spin on things because we were talking about Krishna's six opulences. Does that make him attractive? Does this six opulences make Krishna attractive? Because as you know, Parsaramuni defines Bhagavan with these six opulences. So I asked him that question and he said, no, it's actually Krishna that makes these six opulences attractive. I said, that's probably true. Because the gopis didn't care whether Krishna had these six opulences or not. They didn't even care if it was Bhagwan. When he when they met him in Kurukshetra, they saw the form of Narayan, Dwarkadish, and they said, where's Krishna? Where is this coward boy? So they didn't even really care about Bhagwan. They actually wanted to see their Krishna. So this is the thing. Krishna is the sweet principle. We see that his Nama Madhurya, his names are sweet. Venu Madhurya, his flute is sweet. Leela Madhurya, his pastimes are sweet. So all these sweet principle is what makes Krishna these six opulences attractive. Fame is attractive because Krishna has it. Strength is attractive because Krishna is the attractive principle behind it. Sometimes we try to enjoy these things, but we'll find that having fame, having reputation, wealth, all these things, they dry up because why did they dry up? Krishna has them. How come I can't have that same kind of intensity in my pleasure of having these six opulences? And the answer is very, very simple. You can imagine, when we look at wealth, we look at a banknote. It's just paper, right? The feel of it is just paper. There's no value, but it's the expression. Like Krishna can spend unlimited wealth. It's the expression that Krishna does. It's the Krishna is the one that actually is a source of when he actually expresses fame, when he expresses uh, wealth, when he expresses strength. That's what's the attractive principle. So that's the problem. When we try to enjoy something separate from Krishna, that's when we suffer. So we have to also be careful. The demigods were doing all these, charity, observing vows, sacrifices, etc., giving charity, etc. All these things that they were doing, um, austerities, etc. But these things can become a ritual, right? So we have to very be careful that these things, anything you do, if it becomes a ritual, it actually becomes mechanical. So if we're hearing and chanting, if we're not doing with the intent to satisfy Lord Krishna, then that also becomes mechanical. It also can become a ritual. So we have to understand that seemingly it might be a spiritual activity, um, but we know Bhau Janma Kare Yadi Shavana Kirtana, right? We can chant for many, many thousands of years and not attain Krishna. So we have to be very, very careful that we don't even do these things in a ritual way. Even the idea of I've been in ISKCON for so many years. I know this already. We sometimes have this where we when we read this when we read chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, I already know this. I already know I'm not the body. Dehi knows me yatha dehi. I know this already. But that's the thing. This mechanical way of thinking, it limits us. We don't really grow. Generally, even reading Prabhupada's books can be done in the mixed modes, right? Sometimes when we're reading the purport, we might be in a particular mode. So when we interpret the purport, we might see it in our limited way. But we have to also understand what Srila Prabhupada is actually saying. We have to read his books properly, as it is, the way Arjun understood it. The other point was that I thought about was the dangers of sense gratification, gross and subtle, right? So we already know that sense gratification numbs us in many, many ways. It just blocks us. So sometimes we might be hearing things, but we're still busy thinking about what's in it for me. Um, and it's so dangerous. Even the subtle energy like status, reputation, these are all sense of gratification, fame. If I give this much donation, I want to make sure people know. Or if I'm doing service, I want to make sure people know that I've done this much service, or my knowledge is very powerful. Everyone should know. These things we have to stay away from. This is also sanctification. Remember, our intent is to satisfy the Lord, and that's actually even more powerful, right? We see that even Srila Prabhupada, one person observed him, and I think he spent so many days with him, and he was impressed by Srila Prabhupada. And people asked him, "Why are you so impressed?" And he said, "I was impressed with Srila Prabhupada because he wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was just as it is. This is me. I'm just trying to satisfy the Lord." And that's the point here. I remember back in 2002, or yeah, 2002, I went to India and went to Vrindavan and all these places. And uh, this devotee, we went with this devotee, and I asked him, at that time I was like, four regs are so tough to follow. I was just telling him, I was complaining. So I was complaining about the gross side of things, and he told me that's just half of it. Once you stop the gross, the subtle kind of sticks, it just comes out. You start looking at all the subtler sense gratification that we have. And I couldn't see it, but after many, many years of practicing, I start seeing that the sense gratification can be very subtle as well. And you can actually build a habit of uh, of just enjoying without Krishna. You can actually do it in a subtle level. So and we become good at it. It becomes a habit. We become good at it. So it's very, very hard to get out of that rut. And are we performing devotion service to really glorify Krishna or to satisfy him, or is this for our own gain? Be it subtle as well, right? We have to look at it. Am I giving this class? Am I doing it for my ego? Or am I using Krishna's name to am I exploiting Krishna for my own glory? So these are the things that we have to look at. So we'll stop there. We'll cover question and answers, but also wanted to take a moment to speak about as it is the appearance of His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I was asked to share some thoughts I had or learning that I had from him or by him. So here is His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Got this wonderful photo here. He is the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. He is also known as Prabhupada. Right? He was the answer to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayer. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was his father. Um, he's also known as Kedarnath Dutt. So he was born in Bengal. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur worked effortlessly to spread Mahaprabhu's movement, as we all know, despite having a high position as a deputy magistrate. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was his father. He had a very high position. At the highest position, actually, at that time, the highest position that an Indian could take was a deputy magistrate. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was his son. He was born as Bimal Prasad Dutt on February 6, 1874. So there were some signs that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was a very special personality, that he was sent by Krishna. There was one incident when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was, praying. He had some regret. He's like, my life is passing by. We need to spread Mahaprabhu's movement. So Lord Jagannath came in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's dream, and they spoke to each other. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur shared with the Lord, much of my life has passed, and I have otherwise engaged. He's so engaged in his duties as a deputy magistrate. He also did a lot as he could, but he was getting old. So he asked the Lord, please send someone from your personal staff. Please, Lord, please send someone from your personal staff, your associate, so that I can start this movement. Lord Jagannath then requested Kedarnath to pray an assistant to the image of the goddess Bimala Devi, worshipped in the Jagannath temple. When his wife gave birth to a new child, he named him the son Bimal Prasad, the mercy of Bimala Devi. Right? So this is why his name became Bimala Prasad. His birth was also very, very special. Bhaktisiddhanta's umbilical cord was looped around his body like a sacred Brahman thread. And that actually also left a permanent mark on his skin. So again, signs of some special things, special personality, and special things to come. Also, when he was only 5 months old, he was in his house in Jagannath Puri, and there's a road that leads to the temple, to Jagannath Temple, and that's where they lived. And there was a rath or a Jagannath cart that was on its way back to Gundicha Temple, but it mysteriously stopped. For some reason, Brahmanas could not pull this cart. For some reason, it just stopped there outside Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. So I think some accounts I read, some people said for many, many hours. Some people said for 2 days. But it was significant. Rest assured, it was a very significant length of time that the cart stopped. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur instructed his wife, Sri Yukta Bhagavati Devi, to take his 5-month-old son, Bimal Prasad, in front of Lord Jagannath. So she did so. She placed the child in front of Lord Jagannath, touched his feet. As soon as that happened, pieces of the flower garlands from Lord Jagannath fell on Bimal Prasad. So this was such a sweet occasion that happened. And then as soon as they left, for some reason, the cart could be moved. The Brahmanas could pull the cart again. So again, some special pastimes there. And when he was only 2 to 3 years old, everyone knows about the mango incident, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur purchased some ripe mangoes. He was about to offer it to his deities, and Bimal Prasad, he's like a child, 2 to 3 year old. He's like, this is mine. He grabbed it and he ate it. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur basically rebuked him, he chastised him. He goes, what is this? You're eating something. It should be offered to Lord Giridhari. You should offer to Krishna, when you rebuke a child or chastise them, they nowadays they just do it more and more, right? Especially when someone is 2 to 3 years old. My child is 5 years old. You tell her something, she'll do the opposite. So here, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually he vowed never to have mangoes again. He felt so bad. He actually chastised himself more. He's like, I'm never gonna have, and his whole lifetime he never had mangoes because he remembered this offense. He said, I'm an offender. So so as a child, as a 2 to 3 year old, you can imagine like what kind of discipline he had at that age. By the age of 7, he knew the Bhagavad Gita verse, all the verses, the entire Bhagavad Gita by heart. So he could also explain every single verse at the age of 7. Amazing. His initiation also was very, very special. Wow. He mastered pretty much all the Vedas. He was a Vedic scholar. Prabhupada used to name him Prabhupada used to name him as a living, breathing encyclopedia. He pretty much read everything, right? And he had amazing memory, photographic memory. Whatever you read, he would understand. It would just literally flow out of his mouth. So at one point, he went up to his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he said, "Look, my dear father, I'm still dissatisfied. You know, after reading all these things, I haven't actually still I feel like there's a longing in my heart, very similar to how Vedvyas approached Narad Muni in Bhagavatam, right? He felt after writing the Vedas, etc., he felt this dissatisfaction in his heart. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur instructed him to approach Srila Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj, a great Mahabhagavat, a self-realized, liberated soul for Diksha. So Bhima Prasad approached Srila Gaurakishore Babaji Maharaj for initiation in the month of Magha, in the year of 1900. Magha means from, I think it's January 21st to February 21st. So during that time. So Srila Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj, as you know, he was illiterate. I mean, he was the opposite, like from a material standpoint, he was the polar opposite of what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur is in terms of scriptures and things like that. Here's a scholar approaching someone that's not a scholar for Diksha. So Srila Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj, expressed a reluctance to accept him. Right? He's like, look at me, I'm just illiterate priest. I'm nothing. This person is so qualified. He actually felt himself unqualified to be the spiritual master of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Finally, when Bhima Prasad pleaded with him for initiation, Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj replied, I'll ask Mahaprabhu. If he gives permission, your desire will be fulfilled. So Bhima Prasad left. He came back the next day. He approached him again and he said, what did Mahaprabhu order? Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj replied, I forgot to ask. So again, he kind of made him wait. Then the third time Babaji Maharaj was requested, he replied, I asked. He did not give command. I did not receive permission from Mahaprabhu. So Bhima Prasad then stood up, his heart broken, completely devastated. And he said something so beautiful. He said, you as in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and you, Srila Gaurakishore, are both worshippers of Krishna. I am most unqualified, but karuna na hoila, khandiya, prana na rakibiyara. If there is no mercy, weeping and weeping, I can sustain my life no longer. If I do not receive your mercy, I do not see any need to holding on to life. He was ready to take his own life. Bhima Prasad began to cry. Srila Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj's heart melted to see this. So he told him to take bath in the Saraswati River and come back to him. At that time of initiation, he gave Bhima Prasad the name Chi Varshabhanavi Devi Dayate Das, right? Which means the beloved, the servant of the beloved of Srimati Radharani, or the servant of Krishna. In 1905, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur took a vow of chanting 1 billion names of Krishna. So in this way, how he did this, he actually decided to chant 192 rounds of Hare Krishna Japa each day, a bit like Haridas Thakur. He was residing in Yoga Pit, the place where Lord Chaitanya appeared in Navadvip Mayapur, for 4 continuous years. He was chanting like this. Then he was given some land in the place of the house of Chandrasekharacharya, which he called it Rajapatana. There he moved there near the Ganges. So he lived in a little hut. So sometimes it was raining during the monsoon seasons in Mayapur. There was always floods. The roof would leak, and he would sit with an umbrella in his hut, still chanting. He would not like stop. He won't plug the hole or anything. He would just like, okay, I need to keep doing these. And he kept chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this these are some of the glories of His Divine Grace. There's so many more. You're welcome to read them. This is a very good day to get the mercy of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, um, and to read his pastimes. So we also pray for the mercy of His Divine Grace. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur ki jai. All right, we'll conclude there. And just want to pause here to ask if there's any questions, reflections, or comments. Any other pastimes you'd like to share of Bhaktisiddhanta, or maybe ask anything around any questions around the class as well, around the verse? Trying to open up my chat. I haven't done this for ages.
Dandavad Prabhuji. Very nice class, Prabhuji. Especially the glory of Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur is really, really nice. You were mentioning how he had taken the vow to chant 1 billion names. So he also, during that time, he had the darshan actually of Mahaprabhu, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gokshuras Babaji, and all Mahaprabhu associates. And it was from that darshan that he was convinced to again take up the preaching mission, which Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had wanted so desperately to happen, because Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur knew that among his children, the Bhakti Saraswati Thakur would be the person who would be the conduit to fulfill Mahaprabhu's prophecy that Harinam and all conceptions of Harinam would spread around the world. So obviously, of course, if we follow that chain from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's desire to preach all over the world, he prayed and he had the son Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And then Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, of course, gave inspiration in the Agya, the order, to our Srila Prabhupada. And our Srila Prabhupada became the manifest form of Mahaprabhu's prophecy by actually fulfilling that by spreading Harinam throughout the world. So many, many glories of Srila Bhakti Saraswati Thakur, but this is really prominent because if it had not been for that, we would not be on the Zoom now listening to such things.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you for sharing that. Wonderful. Anyone else? I think there's a question by Rameshwari. Sorry, I just missed it. Hope I'm doing this in order. I have a question on spiritual bank account is eternal. What happens to the bank account when devotees make offenses? Very nice question. Yeah, so there's different kinds of offenses that one can make. As you know, there's Vaishnava Prad, Nama Prad, etc. And there's also different degrees of uh, Vaishnava Prads one can make, right? There's also different kinds of Vaishnavas. I was just reading the other day that if you offend a neophyte devotee, you'll get material reactions. If you offend a devotee who's in the Madhyam platform or above, then you get spiritual reactions. So spiritual reactions means that it's blocked, it's spoilt, kind of like a mad elephant trampling on a, as you know from the nectar instruction, um, like a mad elephant offense, right? It destroys everything that's growing. Um, it is eternal, means that from a material standpoint, it is eternal, as in it's yours to keep. But it becomes a responsibility. It's like a divine treasure, right? Prema Dana. It's a treasure of love. When you start making offenses, it destroys kind of like the mood, the attitude. Prabhupada mentions in the preface of Nectar Instruction that the success in devotional service depends on the attitude of the follower. So similarly, if we're doing things um, and we're making offenses, have we really, I think the question also stands, have we really understood Prabhupada's teachings? Have we really understood what mood we should be doing devotional service in? Um, I've also seen, I've also experienced people do that. Um, make offenses. They may do amazing things, amazing services, but the fences become a habit, and it blocks them. They become also very miserable. The heart becomes hardened as well. So these are things we have to be very careful of. We have to protect. We talked about demigods protecting what's mine. We have to, as devotees, we also have to protect, build a nice fence around our devotional creeper. So we also have to protect our divine treasure of love for Godhead. Hope that answers your question. Right, right. So it's 2 minutes left for daily greetings. I will conclude here. Thank you so much for joining and your attentiveness and your wonderful questions and wonderful realizations. We'll conclude here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj ki jai.